Yapping.
Hello, my name is Edgar, and I am one half of the Yapping Schnauzers. We entertain you with yap-worthy stories we find around the web. Erika is sick still and can't speak, so like can describe to make her feel better. And it'll probably be that way for like maybe another week or so, but yeah, that's how she gets better. And in the interim, she found some cool stories she thinks that we would all like. Today's theme is no common sense. Our first story is titled Roommate Broke My Can Opener, so I brought a new one that I knew I could figure out how to use. So I rent rooms out in my house. I generally do it with friends or friends of friends. And a couple years ago, I had this roommate who was the ex husband of a friend of mine, and I felt sorry for him. So I gave him a discount on rent. He still fell behind, but that's a totally different malicious compliance story. Well, he was the worst roommate I've ever had for many reasons, but for this account, he was pretty much living off canned food when he wasn't stealing my food, and he used my can opener every day. Well, he broke it, and he came to me and told me that as a landlord, I needed to get a new can opener. And before I get to the malicious compliance, let me add, he was very proud of his Harvard PhD. He didn't use it in his minimum wage job, but he never avoided the opportunity to remind me that my PhD was from a state school and his was from Harvard. No, I was working in the career that I used my PhD knowledge, and the program I went to has several Nobel laureates, and I worked with some of them. My roommate was pretty much a failure in life and had slipped into leeching off others to survive. He has no marketable skills. Anyways, the malicious compliance. I bought a new can opener, but I got one that is really tricky to use. It basically works like an electric can opener, but it's manual. I knew there was no way this incompetent roommate would be able to figure out how to use it, and he couldn't. I'd find mango cans in the garbage, and he's not even recycling, and he came to me and asked me how to use the can opener. My response: a guy with a Harvard degree should certainly be able to figure out this on their own. If a guy like me can. Having a roommate is like very difficult for anyone who has a roommate, which I think is like most people these days because like the housing market and like rent, especially in a lot of major cities, is just astronomical. A good roommate is like a blessing, and a bad roommate is like kind of the rule in most cases, especially if like you don't really know them. And like I guess the worst part about this roommate is I'm very against college. Like I don't like the idea of them. I think like maybe once upon a time, like decades ago, they like meant something, but because like hundreds of thousands or like millions of people like graduate every year, it's just very diluted. Basically, everyone has a degree at this point, and everyone isn't a millionaire with a mansion. So there's probably something breaking in that system. Plus, like you can learn a lot better on your own these days. There's a lot of things online that help you to learn, whether you use Google, YouTube, or AI. I mean, this would be my worst nightmare kind of like roommate, like someone that constantly talks about like their Harvard degree. Do I know any Harvard people? I think like a few people from my old job did, but I don't think it ever came up that often. Especially like once you're in the real world, a good degree from like a good school can probably get you through the door. But like after, as you get older, what you've done with that degree or what you've done in general is what's going to carry you to like wherever you want to go in your career. That and plus knowing some people, but I didn't really like the lather of like having to know someone to like climb the ranks either. In this case, I feel like if he had the balls, he would just kick the roommate out at this point. Like he's not even paying rent, and like, yeah, sure. If you can survive not paying rent for like a month or two, and like there's someone like you're close to or like you're friends with, I think that's like if you're comfortable with it, you should be able to offer. But I mean, especially like for someone that's like a jerk like this, it's just like kick them out as soon as you can. Though I think like a lot of like, and depending on which city this takes place in, there's like a lot of tenant protection laws. So OP might just be like stuck with him because of that. Things like this where he just gets a slightly more complicated can opener. It's probably like a or a mini way to just fight back against the roommate. Like hopefully he gets the picture. So the top comment is really freak him out with a P38. I had one of these when I was in the army and could open a can in a snap. But if you didn't know the knack, you were screwed. So what's a P30A? Okay, so a P30A. So in the top comment, they had a link to a P30A can opener in Wikipedia. And if you're in the army, you can tell me more about it. Um, I would like to hear your experience with it because I've never seen this thing before. I thought it was a penny because the image just shows a penny, but no, the P38 can opener is just like a little like credit card looking slab of metal with like half a knife sticking out of it. I guess like half a very short knife sticking out of it. And I mean, I can see how that works, but I think I would end up just like like just stabbing the can until it opened. I might try and get it and just to have it as an option. But yeah, OP, you final thoughts. OP, maybe you should get the P38. I wonder if a Harvard graduate would be able to get it. So the next story is titled I applied to be a receptionist at a vet clinic and somehow got interviewed like I was joining the Avengers. Dang, yeah. These interviews are getting crazy for no reason. Like, I get it for like if you're some sort of like tech company or where you're gonna get paid like 6, 7 figures, but like even these like entry level jobs are like asking for way too much for no reason. So the story begins. I walked in expecting the usual questions. Can you answer phones? Handle scheduling? Instead, the interviewer goes straight into what will you do if an aggressive dog lunged at you? How many aggressive dogs happen? Okay, yeah, this is a vet clinic, so I guess this makes sense actually. It's not terrible to be. So there I am, calmly explaining how I'd approach an angry Rottweiler, thinking, wow, receptionist here must double as pet psychologist. And she finishes the page of questions, looks up at me, and suddenly freezes. Wait, you applied for receptionist, not vet assistant? And I said, yeah. And then she says, oh, wrong list. Let's start over. And just like that, I was put through round two. A completely different set of receptionist questions, back to back. And by the end of it, I felt like I'd been tested for receptionist, assistant, and part time adventure all in one sitting. The longest job interview of my life, and I still don't know if I got the job. But hey, at least I know now how to wrestle a hypothetical dog while answering phones. This isn't like exactly like the worst kind of interview to get. Like I'm sure it's annoying to like do basically two interviews back to back. It seems like it's like a fun interview, like just asking hypotheticals about like taking care of pets. So like I guess being a receptionist to like pet owners. I wonder what kind of like question made OP think that this was like an Avenger kind of like question. Yeah, my longest job interview was probably my interview for Google. So for the tech interviews, if you guys ever heard about it, they're very notorious for being very long and arduous, and that was before like AI happened. Like when I did my interview, like when AI was like more widely used. So I mean, it was like a very not a very different dynamic, but like it's I feel like it's a lot harder, and I'll tell you why after I explain how the tech interview works. But basically, they call you initially, like some recruiter, and they just are like asking you like basic questions just to ensure that you weren't lying on your resume and that you're not an ass. And then afterwards, you get a phone call interview where, well, not a phone call, but more like a video interview with an engineer, and you and the engineer, and then the engineer asks you like a simple like coding question. In tech, it's called leak code style questions, and they're basically like little coding computer science puzzles that you have to discuss like possible solutions, and then like make clarifying questions, and afterwards you have to code out the the solution and then explain the solution and all that stuff. Like you do all that within a 30-minute like interview time slot, and that's like the first second round. And afterwards, if you did well enough, they bring you into the on-sites or through like a Google Meets. And then from that point, they had 4 to 5 back-to-back interviews in that same style, and the questions were pretty difficult. And I didn't sleep that day actually. Yeah, so for that interview it was for Google, and I did not sleep that day because I was very anxious because I really wanted to get in. And but yeah, the interview was like 4 or 5 back to back, and it lasted like 5-ish to 6 hours maybe. I felt like it was forever. It was basically like a whole work day, worth of just like talking to Google engineers, and they were pretty cool. All the ones I met. I never met them again after that day, but like they were all pretty cool to talk to. And the kind of questions they asked were basically like things that you'd find like in a computer science like intro course. To be honest, it was like graph problems. It's been like 4-ish 5 years, so I don't quite remember it exactly anymore. So yeah, back then it was like a pretty long interview. Like the interview itself was long, and then also like in the time between waiting for each recruiter interaction or email was like pretty long too. Like I think I submitted my resume to like the Google Careers portal at like April May, and I started working at December because that's how long it took to like go back and forth with the recruiter and all of the people that were involved in the interview process. So yeah, it was like half a year basically for me, and I was just like basically studying and just trying to get better at my skills at the time because I was very entry level, like engineer wise, like in terms of like definitely in terms of skill and just like knowledge. But yeah, it was a good time afterwards. I would recommend. But yeah, nowadays, however, because everything was like online, like the interviews and all that stuff, it's very easy for people to just use AI in another like tab or window or like device, and it's just to help them like through the interview process. And like obviously interviewers can see like when you're not acting honestly, but like it definitely makes it easier if you have a good poker face. I haven't been in the interview loop recently, so I don't know how drastically that affects the interview process. But I know like a lot of companies now like are trying to have people like interview in person, just to weed out people who just use AI to like get them through the process. Which it makes sense. Ideally, the person knows their basics and their fundamentals like it's the back of their hand. But because I use AI every day, I would say like the first few years of your career, if you're in like engineering or if you're interested, I wouldn't use AI, or I wouldn't use AI when you're coding, just because you need to be able to code yourself, and you should be able to see and like get all that skill and all that struggle that helps you get better at being an engineer. And then you get to see a lot of problems, see how they're solved, or see like I personally like I struggle a lot when I'm like creating things, and it's like I feel like every single possible bad thing that can happen or bug I can like run across to, I always hit it, regardless if I'm using AI or not in my when I'm coding. I'm always learning it in that rate. But yeah, if you're starting out, I would not recommend. I would recommend using AI to like help you teach and stuff. But like for coding tasks for you, I would just like keep it to your own skills, and then like after a year or two, once like you know how like code is supposed to look, and you have like you can start forming opinions on like how things should be organized, and when you can just like basically understand like the gist of all of that, then you can use AI to just like speed up the process. But yeah, that's just to say that like when I think like for him or for OP, this interview was probably like not tough, but just like long, which is like a different kind of like difficulty, like the endurance of it. But at least for me, compared to like a tank interview, I would kind of prefer these kind of interviews just because like you're not like under pressure to like perform like some sort of like coding puzzle and coding on the spot. Like I know how to code, but like I feel like if I had to do it on the spot, I would be a little bit nervous. And like these questions are like pretty fun, like an adventure style question, or a question that makes you feel like they're interviewing for the Avengers. Sounds pretty intense. Oh, and the top comment is, "What would you do if an angry customer lunged at you?" And then OP responded, "Turn the Rottweiler on them." Well, I've never had an angry customer lunged at me, and I don't think I would ever have a job where someone would attack me like that. So, I think how would I answer this? If I want a job, I'll say I step out of the way. And if I don't want a job, I would say I would lunge at them at the same time, so we meet in the air. This isn't really like a Am I the Asshole post, but like hopefully Opie gets a job. Like I mean, basically doing these two interviews back to back, I feel like he kind of deserves some at least another like interview if they're still on the fence with him. But I still feel like this is the way that the interviewer handled this interview with OP is a little bit of a red flag for the vet clinic. Like it just shows like a lack of organization or just something broken in the system. So maybe there's other parts of working at this vet clinic that would be equally as hectic. But I mean, we're in a tough job market slash economy, so you just have to take what you can get. The next story is titled, Am I the asshole for telling my best friend I understood why his fiance is so disappointed that he proposed to her at the gym? I guess if they're like a fitness couple or whatever, this would make sense, but I do not know a lot of people who would want to be willingly proposed to at a gym. So yeah, I, 27 female, was excited when my best friend, 27 male, told me he had proposed to his girlfriend, 29 female. He said he had the proposal on video. I was so confused when the video started out in a woman's gym when I saw his girlfriend on an exercise machine in the video. And I had a bad feeling. Yeah, me too. And I'm not even seeing it. But yeah, she looked so shocked and she said yes. She only looked happy for like 2 minutes, and the rest of the time she gave an insincere smile. My best friend expressed frustration that his fiancée had confessed she wasn't happy with the proposal after he asked her why she looked so sad. He was venting to me and asked me how I'd feel if a guy proposed to me while I was in the gym. I guess he really expected me to agree with him, but I said I would hate it. I said I don't want to be proposed to when I'm sweaty and stinky at the gym. And I basically explained to him that I understood why she was disappointed. My best friend called me shallow and a bad friend. Am I the asshole? I would not say you're an asshole for giving your opinion. It's pretty odd. Like, there has to be some sort of like inside joke between OP's friend and his fiance. But I mean, given that the video shows that she clearly wasn't that happy about the proposal, I see in this guy's future like having to be proposed like somewhere better, like at least some sort of like nice restaurants or like a nice park. Like where you do the proposal, I guess doesn't really matter too much because it's just like a single moment, and like in the rest of the time that like you're together with somebody, and there's plenty of more times, plenty more like situations and moments that you can make the other person feel more special. Despite all that, I would not want to propose to someone at a gym. I don't see many people being happy about the idea of being proposed to at a gym. And the worst part is he got this on film for whatever reason, just to like, I guess to memorialize how disappointing this proposal was. Yeah, when I proposed to Erika, it was pretty. I planned it out pretty well. I had like a few months to set it up, and we actually got I actually did the proposal at New York City in the QC spa. I just messaged him like months in advance if we can do this, and we just were back and forth. The my contact at QC spa, and they were very professional, and it was a nice place. I had like a mini vision about how it would look like, and I had a photographer and all that stuff, and I wanted everyone to, both our families to be at the place, or both our families, or as many of our families, to be at the spa as possible. And QC Spa at the time allowed us, because like it's a spa, so there's no children allowed, and everyone has to be like in their like their robes or like their bathing suits. But for like a brief 5 minute window, they allowed us to do the proposal like in full dress in the on premise. And yeah, and they were very professional about everything, and they were equally as excited when we went as well. I would recommend it. Oh, and funny thing too, I felt like the entire day was like very stressful, so I drank a little bit too much, and I didn't eat that day either. So like the drinks hit me a lot harder. But yeah, like maybe like after 3 or 4 like cocktails in, I was like definitely like beyond buzzed, and I was dropping off Erica to like a massage like appointment within the spa. So I and she would be there for like an hour or so, and that would give me time to just like, well, ideally that would give me time to get the photographer and everyone ready, and also for me to like sober up a little. And as soon as I dropped her off, I went to the elevator in QC spot, and then I went like to the ground level. And when the elevator door opened, I just see like a tall guy, formally dressed, and he said, "Are you Edgar?" And I was like, and then I had to sober up quickly because I was the manager and had to explain to him, I guess, and basically the entire plan because I was the manager, for that night for that shift, and so I had to explain to him as clearly as possible without slurring my words. But still, it went smoothly. See, I'm not trying, yeah, but I'm not trying to mog the guy for proposing at a gym. I think as long as the place is special, uh, to you and whoever you're proposing to, well, that's all that really matters when it comes to the proposal. And I mean, even though she didn't like being proposed to at the gym, she still said yes. So they still have like that closeness and that bond to elicit that yes. So now the top comment is: don't ask questions you aren't ready to hear the answer to. I mean, I agree with you. A gym is an odd place to propose unless it is a very specific reason for it. Like, that's where you met and you loved that story, or that's how you bonded, or whatever. He's just upset that he disappointed his fiance and he needs to come to terms with that. I do agree with this. I think maybe OP's friend had a reason to do this, but I mean, ultimately, like, he knows that he like messed up. He knows that his fiance is like not on board with like how it was done. And as I said earlier, I see a reproposal in his future, somewhere nice, somewhere with a photographer maybe, or I guess you gotta make up for for the mistake by making it a little bit bigger when you do repropose to her. Hopefully, they have like a nice long wedding, nice long happy wedding, nice long happy marriage. So final verdict: OP, the one who said that this plan was dog shit, that this plan was terrible. You are not the asshole for just basically just being honest to your friend. The like OP's friend who proposed, I wouldn't say he's an asshole for this. He's an asshole for how he treated OP, for giving her opinion, but I don't think he was the asshole for proposing in this way, because I'm sure he thought that this was like a good proposal. So the next story is titled, "Am I the asshole for telling my girlfriend she's going to have to get over dirt if she wants kids?" I, 25 female, and my girlfriend, Amy, 27 female, is a wonderful person. She's very smart and she works in a clean room with computer chips and all that stuff. But she's also something of a germaphobe, to the point that she keeps her toothbrush in the hallway outside the bathroom in a Ziploc bag. Her apartment is always spotless. She showers thrice a day. Even her car somehow never has any dirt on the floor. And she hand washes all of her clothes as soon as she's done wearing them. And it's both impressive and intimidating. I'm not the messiest person on the planet by any means. I don't have massive piles of unwashed dishes or a leaning tower of used pizza boxes or anything. But I'm not as clean as she is. And I'm not against making some adjustments, but we've been talking more about the future now that we've been getting serious, and I've come across a problem. Amy wants kids. Desperately wants kids. And I like kids too, but she's never been around babies or little kids before in her life, and she seems to think she'll be able to keep the house just as clean as it is now and keep the baby spotless too. I'm the oldest of four and the oldest cousin of 9, and I grew up around kids. I've been babysitting since I was 10. There's no such thing as clean toddlers, not for longer than 10 minutes at the very most. And she thinks if we just work at it, we have a spotless house and a spotless kid. And I told her, gently of course, that that's just not possible. And I asked how she plans on handling diapers, vomit, frogs smuggled into the house, jam going everywhere, soup bowls tipped over for fun, spilled grape juice, nail polish on the wall, and the like. And she insisted that the kids who do that are just poorly trained and don't have good boundaries. She kind of has a point there, but I told her that they're kids without fine motor skills or impulse regulation, and accidents will always happen. And if she wants to have kids, she's going to have to accept that they're going to get messy, and our house will get messy. Amy accused me of not being supportive and trying to find excuses to not have kids with her and trying to guilt her into being sloppier. This is dissolving into an actual fight instead of a discussion, and I'm starting to second guess myself. Maybe my family was just excessively messy because we were rural and poor, and maybe my standards are too low, and we really haven't tried hard enough. It's very frustrating, and I want some outside perspective, parental perspective especially. So yeah, I'm not a parent, but I do take care of a lot of cousins and nephews and nieces, and yeah, I would agree with this. I mean, it depends on the child. Honestly, it's a mixture of like how their personalities are and how they were raised. But yeah, for the most part, uh, kids are pretty messy. Like we have like our nephews over pretty often, and we've had like Erica's little sister over when she used to like live here. The entire like apartment, entire like room would always just get messy after like a whole night of having them over, and I'm not even sure what happens. We're just like playing games, or we're just like on our iPads or whatever. But yeah, somehow the entire apartment is flipped over, and then we had to slowly pick up all the pieces again. But yeah, it's just like something to accept. Like even if they're like well trained, like Obi says, they don't have fine motor skills or impulse regulation, so they're just like more prone to like having more accidents or making a mess of the place. OP and OP's fiance slash girlfriend should probably have like more honest discussion about this. Like whatever OP just said in this thread, he should tell his girlfriend, because this isn't coming from a place. Oh, I don't want to have kids, or I want us to be more messier. Maybe a little bit of that, to be honest, but it's just OP just wants to give his girlfriend like a heads up. This is just like the reality, and not to freak out when the child like just ends up flipping the room whenever they're at. But yeah, the top comment is, just when you think you've cleaned up all the poop and mess, you find a casual pile of vomit behind a pillow. And I think that basically sums it up. Like just especially like babies. I've heard like a lot of horror stories, and then I heard like some like stories, like other stories, like you're the first like year or two with a baby. They're either like perfect angels, or you're not sleeping for like the entire period of time. Especially for babies, it's just they vomit and poop because that's they're getting used to like eating and all that stuff that people had to get used to. But yeah, hopefully you'd have an honest conversation about this, because like this isn't like kind of like a relationship ending kind of argument. It's like something they can just set boundaries, or just set like proper expectations about like what having a baby means, because that's you raising a person into like a full adult, and like making sure they're like all prepared for life and stuff. And the messiness is only a part of like what being a parent is. Like I'm not a parent, but I imagine like it's pretty difficult, but also equally rewarding when done well. Final verdict: OP and her girlfriend are not the assholes in the story. It's just like kind of not seen eye to eye, but it's like nothing like a 5-10 minute conversation can't fix. The next story is titled, Am I the Asshole for Taking My Daughter Out for a Nice Dinner and Leaving Everyone Else to Fend for Themselves? So, my daughter, 16 female, and I, 43 female, love eating at authentic Asian restaurants. We had to pick my son, 12 male, up at a Korean barbecue about 40 minutes from my house. It was a party with another family, and I suggested to my husband, 44 male, of 25 years, that he and the two other kids can have whatever they want for dinner, and my daughter and I would get Korean barbecue at this restaurant. And he said, no, we should all go as a family. And I reminded him that he and the other kids aren't big fans of Korean barbecue, and it would be cheaper to eat separately. Yeah, that makes sense. And he insisted on everyone going. When we get to the restaurant and he sees the menu, he complains he doesn't know what to order and complain about the price. The other kids followed suit. I suggested they go eat in another restaurant in the plaza, and daughter and I would get the Korean food. It smelled so amazing, by the way. And we waited 20 minutes for our table, and he continued to make comments about the price. even though you better not order anything fancy. He even told me you better not order anything fancy. And that was the last straw. I got up and I went to the van. Everyone followed. I said I was taking everyone home and my daughter and I would go on our own to a local Korean barbecue. We did exactly that. Everyone else had McDonald's and played Roblox. And I get home and he is fuming, saying that I owe everyone an apology. I refused. I said I had zero remorse. And it seemed like everyone was happy but him and went to bed. I slept perfectly fine and he's still mad. So, am I the asshole for taking my daughter out for dinner and leaving everyone else to do their own thing? Probably like an asshole to her husband, but I mean, she did warn the husband that he and like the children that followed, like, and some of the other children not fans of like Asian food or Korean barbecue. And if that's the case, like, it's totally okay to just like eat something else because Korean barbecue is very expensive. I think around here is like 40 $45 per person, depending on like what you get. Like around here, we have a place called Hot Pot. They have like different prices for if you want like the hot pot, which is just like the soup where you can put a bunch of, where you can put like whatever like soup base kind of noodle and like any kind of meat or like vegetable in there, and then you boil it and then you make your own soup that way. They also have like Fei bar to like get like more ingredients and condiments and peppers and spices. Yeah, so they have that for the hot pot, and then they have the Korean barbecue part of it, which is like you have a grill in the middle of your table, and you just order a bunch of raw meat and whatever you want to like eat, and it's all really seasoned for you. So all you gotta do is just put all that food into the grill in the middle, and you make your own food in that way. And it sounds like a lot of extra work, and most of the time it feels a little bit more extra, but like the food is just like amazing, and it's buffet, so it's like all you can eat. Depending on get one or the other or both, the prices are like ranges from like $30 to $40, and yeah, that's pretty per person, and yeah, that gets very expensive really fast. So to have like a whole family where like more than half of the family doesn't like Korean barbecue, just doesn't make sense because it's just so expensive. No one's gonna be enjoying the food, and I think ideally the husband would have listened at the start because then he would have had pizza instead of McDonald's and frustration. The top comment is, not the asshole. You told him what your plan was, and he and you both knew he and the other kids didn't like Korean barbecue. There is nothing wrong with doing things separately occasionally. And yeah, I agree because even though it's ideal for everyone to like eat as a family or like eat all together, sometimes people just don't like the food that's being served. It's like only so many places that have like just chicken tenders or fries or some sort of side you can like nip on, but like it all just comes down to compromise, which uh, both OP and her husband failed to do. So, final verdict, I think both OP and her husband were assholes in this situation. The husband because he was stubborn, and then OP because even though like she was in the right, she kind of like rubbed it into the husband's face instead of trying to like remedy it. It seemed like she just put more fire into it. So that is all the stories that we have today. Thank you for tuning in to this week's episode. Check out our website, www.yappings.com, and join our mailing list for updates. If you love our podcast and want to support us, subscribe and share to your friends and family. We would appreciate this so much. Also, we have a Facebook group called Am I the Asshole? Relationship and Family Drama, linked in description. Join so you can share Am I the Asshole posts you like, or share your own stories for us all to judge. We may even read a few posts in one of our episodes if you're lucky. Hopefully, Erika will get better soon. Like and subscribe to help her feel better. And thank you. Bye.